What it is. How's it going, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about Thor Love and Thunder, the newest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're going to talk about all the things. We're going to talk about the love, the thunder, hammers, flicking off your robe and bearing it all to the world, ass cheeks and everything. So if you want to hear what we have to say, sit back, relax, grab a drink, beverage, whatever you want to call it, beverage and or snack. Sit back, relax, and listen to The First Ones to Die. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the First Ones to Die podcast. I am your host, Jerome. Hope you are having an awesome day and or night and or morning, whatever time you are listening to this podcast, this recording, of course. I am joined once again by my co-host and friend, Alex. Alex, how are you?
I'm super. Look, I got another drink.
What
It is
that?
Sour Patch energy drink.
Stop getting
Rather.
candy theme. Well, I guess the last one was a candy theme,
It
but
was
stop
chip.
getting sodas that are not meant for the human consumption.
What I love that it says it's Sour Patch, like the candy, but it says energy, 0 sugar. Oh, it smells like it. Yeah, it's yellow. Oh, no. Yeah.
See, keep doing this to yourself. First it was the flaming hot dew. Now it's this.
Oh, this one just like tastes like they melted the Sour Patch things. No, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
At least that reaction was tamed compared to the other one. That one got me.
There was I think they're still around maybe somewhere else. There's you're gonna take another just get
I just
another
wanted
drink.
to try it again. It's not worth it. It's gross.
Like there's another there is a place in Seattle here. I think it's called like Fizz Pop or Pop Fizz. Well, I think it's Pop Fizz. That was just a soda place. That's closed down now, but they used to sell all types of sodas from like everywhere, like sodas I never even heard of. And they used to have one that was made by the same company that makes the cookie dough bites, and they had a cookie dough bite soda. And and my greatest regret is that I never got to taste the cookie dough soda. I'm like, I want to know what this tastes like. They also had one that was red velvet cake too. I'm like, red velvet cake soda. First of all, red velvet cake's my favorite type of cake.
Right,
and
mine too.
Have a soda version of it? Like, how dare you?
Well, you see me every time we go to the theater. That's the candy I get. That's the candy I love. I do know there is a soda place in Seattle where you can actually make your own like flavored sodas. They like provide all the syrups and stuff. But I would love that. I would absolutely get that. I have 2 energy drinks I've never tasted that I own. One of them is the Simpsons energy drink, and it's in like a Buzz a Duff beer can.
Oh, is it an energy drink? I've seen it in other places. I always thought it was like cream soda or something.
No, it's an energy drink. Then I have a Rick and Morty energy drink, which it's like from the episode where they separate they go to that spot and they separate their like bad personality parts.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're green, gooey, like people. But I like it because of the can aesthetic, so I'm not opening them.
Dang it. So it's Rocket Fizz, first of all. That's the name of the store. And it is closed in Seattle. The nearest one to us is all the way in Portland.
Well, let's go to Portland. I will drive down there for like the cookie dough soda.
Dude, Rocket Fizz road trip.
I don't believe it's going to taste good. Like I know this for a fact. It's not going to taste good, but I want it.
You know what? It'll be worth it. We'll have to like take out a few days and go to like Portland to go to the store.
Right. All right. So we have our next.
I know we have a podcast to do, but now I am actually invested in this. I'm gonna find out what are the direction. How far is it from at least my place to get there by
Is there
car.
one in Los Angeles? Because if we can't make the trip, I can have Jonathan send us up one. Be like, Jonathan, I need you to go to this place. I need you to
So
grab these certain sodas.
it says via I-5, it would take, at least from my location, and you're 15 minutes away from me, so probably from your location, it would be 3 hours and 20 minutes from where I live.
Oh, I could do that in probably like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that's not a bad drive. That's easy.
I don't drive safely.
I mean, I'll drive us, but but we'll still get there.
My mom was not happy with me because she lives in Baker City, Oregon, and by maps, it is 6 hours. However, when I drove from there to here, it was like such thick fog you couldn't see in front of you. I was also driving a much larger car, carrying much more weight. I got here in a little less under 6 hours, and nobody was happy with me about how good of time I made. They're like, you were driving through mountains and thick fog, Alex. You shouldn't have made it. You shouldn't have made good time. And I was like, I'm here and I'm safe, right? Fine. There's one in Bakersfield, California. If we can't make it out to Portland, I'm making Jonathan go there.
All right.
I'm just gonna be like, look, I need this.
But we're not here to talk about sodas. Today we're here to talk about one Thor Love and Thunder, that is the most recent MCU movie to come out. We both saw it in theaters, technically day before opening day on Thursday, or technically Thor's Day. So it was the perfect time to see Thor. We also had our friend Kaylee with us as well. If you saw our Instagram posts, you may have seen a little bit of our out of the theater reactions, which wasn't really much, but we all seem to enjoy it. But it's been a couple days since then at the time of this recording. So Alex, how are you feeling? General thoughts on Thor Love and Thunder?
I still love it. I still think it was fun. There wasn't a bad scene, at least I didn't think, that I didn't enjoy. It held its plot. It was pretty steady, and it was just fun and enjoyable. And I think with superhero movies, you tend to lose that a lot. And Thor has this nice way of just being fun. It's not dark and gloomy like other superhero movies, and I think that's partially due to the director. First
Taika.
name Taika. I don't know. So I have such a problem with his first name, Taika Waititi. I'm fine with his last name, but my brain refuses to like accept his first name, which is stupid because it's just Taika. It makes no sense, but I think it's partially. I mean, it's really due to him because he even said in an interview that he wanted to make it a Thor almost nobody wanted to see, which is Thor in a midlife crisis going on, which is something everybody can relate to nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think?
I like this movie a lot. I think it's fun. I think it's filled with so much energy, which is great for a Thor movie. I love the cast. I think everyone does a great job. Tessa Thompson, once again, is incredible as Valkyrie. Jane is also great to see Natalie Portman back. And I'm sure she had a great time doing this movie because one of her biggest complaints in the previous Thor movies that she was in is that she didn't felt like she really got to do a lot. She was kind of just the girlfriend. So this time around, she gets to be a part of the action, gets to do a lot more. So I'm sure she had a great time doing that and being a part of that. But also Christian Bale was a legit surprise as Gore the God Butcher. Like, firstly, Christian Bale synonymously said he would never do a superhero movie. So when he got cast, instantly people were like, okay. But
Wait, didn't
even
he
more than that,
play Batman?
yeah, but the Dark Knight trilogy was more like a series, like as super dark and serious. Like when he was saying that, he meant like stuff like the MCU, where it's all comedy and jokes and super bright and colorful and kind of goofy, that sort of thing. Um, and but I think he does a great job here. I think he gives the character of Gore a lot of gravitas and a lot of weight, and he kind of anchors the movie down at times to make it, to kind of pull it back into reality, um, of like how serious it is. Also, the color grading of this movie is really great. Especially there's a part, without spoiling anything, there's a part that they changed the color scale of the movie, and it's so well done. It's so cool and interesting, and it almost feels like you're in a different atmosphere, the way it shifts in the movie. So I love that stuff. My only complaints though would be that I think this story, its pacing is a bit off. It just really moves really fast. And I think that's because it's kind of chopped up. From what I heard, apparently there's a 4-hour cut of this movie that Taika
Isn't there
made.
always?
Not always, no. It's just
Sure.
apparently just him and Zack Snyder. They're the only two. But Taika like cut, so he had to cut this movie out a lot because this movie is only like 2 hours. So he had to cut it up a lot to make it what it is. And you can tell there's a lot of times where it feels like we're just barreling through into the next scene. And it really just burns through a lot of minutes. Not in a bad way, just a thing
Yeah,
where I was
but
like, oh wow, we're already here. Okay. I thought it was gonna take a little bit more time, but all right, we're here now.
that's exactly what I enjoyed about this movie, and even the last Thor one, Ragnarok. It was because it didn't feel like it wasted time on certain things. It just went to the next scene and it was like, all right, let's keep going. Because that's how like my brain works. I'm like, I get this is like you need that like emotional connection, so you kind of needed that scene or this or that. But it's like my brain's like, well, let's keep going. We have like kids are in danger, world's ending. We need to do stuff. Let's go, let's go, let's go. So like that's a lot of my problems with like superhero films. There's a lot of like moments where they're just standing and talking and like explaining why they're a superhero, why they got into this, what's going on, and like all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but let's continue. You have a mission. There's people in danger. Let's go. Let's have some urgency.
I think, yeah, but with Thor Ragnarok, it felt paced out better. Like the characters had time to breathe, and like you got time with everybody. Because like, to piggyback off of that, the other problem is, as much as I like Jane and Tessa Thompson, they don't get a lot of screen time because Thor soaks up so much of it. And I know he's the main character, but there's a lot going on with Jane's character, with with Valkyrie's character, that we don't get to see because we kind of just burn through so many plot points going into the story. So it's like, I feel like I like this movie, but I don't like it more than Thor Ragnarok, which felt like it really was taking its time to let each character have their moment to really like, know their motivation for that movie. Versus this one, it feels like it is very much Thor's movie, and there's a lot of characters that kind of just come and go as the plot needs them to, because we're just moving, like with no time to stop and really like let any character other than Thor, and I guess maybe Jane gets a little bit more time than Valkyrie and even Korg does, but like we're really moving really fast, and it's kind of doing a disservice to some of the supporting cast compared to the main character. That being said, though, overall, it didn't hurt the movie for me. It didn't make it where I was like, oh man, like I would love this movie if not for, no, it's like I still enjoy this movie. It still is one of those ones where I'm gonna like, like as if I ever do like a Thor marathon, I would enjoy waiting for this one to be on the list. Also, the soundtrack too was dope. Love the soundtrack.
I'm not usually a fan of 80s music, honestly, but like they use it so well and it fits. It genuinely fits with everything. So I was like, yeah, all right, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like everything.
So those are our general thoughts. I should have said this before, but for those who don't know how our reviews work, is that we give a general thoughts section, and then we have a spoiler section after this. So you might be like, oh man, they just finished the review. There's still like a whole other like 30, 40 minutes left. That's because we're going to get into spoilers. So right now we're going to go into the spoiler section. So if you haven't seen Thor Love and Thunder yet, pause this, watch that, then come back and finish the review. If you care about spoilers and stuff. But before you go, hold on, wait a minute now. Before you go, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe if you're watching this on the YouTube channel. If you're not and you're just streaming, give us 5 stars, thumbs up, a review on all the streaming services you can find us. And don't forget to follow us at The First Ones to Die on all the social media platforms to find out about more stuff we are doing that you might be interested in watching and or listening to. So do that first, then pause this, then go watch Thor Love and Thunder, then come back. It's a lot of steps, but I feel like you can do it. I believe in you.
Should I say something encouraging too? You can do
Yes,
it.
Alex, go for it.
You can do it. I was talking to my mom and I told her about something, how like I'm terrible at comforting, and she started laughing. And I was like, what the hell? She was like, oh no, it's just nice to know. She's like, because she's really bad at comforting me. Terrible. So she's like, oh, it's just really nice to know that you're bad at it too. She's like, it makes me feel less bad. I'm like, can you focus for 5 seconds? Like, I was doing my best. But yeah, you can do it. Anyway.
But I'm getting into spoilers of Thor. Well, Alex, is there anything in particular that stood out to you that you wanted to talk about first?
So it is a Thor movie, so anybody, just a fair warning, there is like a lot of flashing, different colors, the lightning, of course, but it's not only just the lightning, they have like a rainbow lightning too, and then the necromancer is constantly, is he considered a necromancer?
No. Mm-mm.
He's got the necro sword though.
He's got the necro sword, which is it. So the necro sword in the comics is made by Null, who's the king of the symbiotes. He's essentially like the creator of like Venom, like his race of aliens. There's a dude named Null who was the king of his race, who created the necro sword out of like bodies of symbiotes to make like this ultimate powerful weapon called the necro sword. But then he was like he had an epic battle or something, and then he went away for a while. While he was gone, Null finds it and uses it to kill gods. And but that's what the necro sword is. That's why it's called that. It's because it's made from dead bodies. I don't know what the origin is for this movie, because symbiotes don't exist in this movie or in the MCU yet. So I don't know why it's still called the necro sword. I guess because it can kill people, or it kills the user like slowly. I don't know. But he's not a necromancer. He does not like bring back to life like dead things or anything like that. It's just he just has the necro sword, which I can't, every time I hear it, I can't hear the word necro sword and not think like, you gotta say it with like the cocaine rock head voice of like, the necro sword. Just like, the necro. Yeah.
Okay. Well, my original warning was that there's just a lot of flashing. So if you do suffer from seizures or migraines or anything, just take proper precaution. I mean, it is Thor.
If it helps, there is a
lightning.
part where it's black and white, so that might give you relief from all the flashing colors.
Because they're so flashy. I just like to always give that warning, because people think like, oh, yeah, it won't be so bad, but it's very bright. It takes up the whole screen, the brightness. Especially with Thor and his axe, because now he has a full-on rainbow going on when he teleports. I do love the way he teleports with that thing, because there was a scene,
the Bifrost.
Bifrost. There was a scene where they're in the town of New Asgard, and Natalie Portman's character, as well as Tessa Thompson's character, was like, don't do it here, and he does it, and it just blows a hole through the roof, and he comes back. He's like, so I couldn't find anybody, and she's like, you're paying for that. I'm sending you the invoice. I was like, yeah, I never thought about that. I was like, he's probably caused so much destruction of buildings just by teleporting, just by going off.
I watched a review from Jeremy Johns. He brought up a good point where he's like, yeah, this Thor, it's weird to see Thor this way now, because it's like the whole thing he learned in Thor 1 is how to, like, he was super sad that like the destroyer came down and was causing collateral damage to the small town that they were in Thor 1. And he learned a valuable lesson about how like his actions and the gods' actions like can affect the people of Earth. And so he took it as his charge to like protect the people of Earth. And now it's like you cut to this Thor and he could care less. Like he's just like he destroys that temple of aliens. And he's just like, well, what are you gonna do?
Well,
and then he burns a hole through the new Asgard thing. It's like, I don't know. This feels like a Thor who's just forgotten that lesson. Has just been like, I mean, what are you gonna do?
He's back to being a himbo. Well, I can kind of see why, because he's like so focused on like basically trying to go back to whom he once was, and that was just a Viking god, but he can't, because all he thinks about is like the loss of his family, and he kind of abandoned his place. He should have been king of New Asgard, but he's like, no, I'm gonna dip. And
yeah, that was his thing at the end of Endgame, where he's like, I need to go find out who I'm supposed to be. And then he ends up hanging out with the Guardians, which I'm like, man, I feel like we missed out on and I feel like maybe in the 4-hour cut, we probably got to see more of him with the Guardians. Cause I'm like, man, we missed out on a lot of adventures that probably would have been epic to see of the Guardians with Thor.
Would they? Because like, it's a clear sense of like, he only helped fight at the end when they like, that's why they were getting annoyed with him, because he kept sitting down and being like, I wonder where I'm supposed to be. And it's just like,
that's that one adventure, but there's probably plenty of awesome adventures.
No, it happened in that one where they were in all that water, and then he went up to that like hill. He's like, oh, I'll plant my sword and I'll wait until I'm called. And then they're like, we need your help. We're way outnumbered. Like, what are you doing up here? And then he destroyed. So it's multiple times he's done it, just in the short span we did get.
I also love the roster of the guard. Just to talk about the Guardians real quick, I like the roster of the Guardians right now. Like, they're way more fun.
Peter Quill, Drax, Nebula, Mantis, and Krallig.
Rocket, and Groot.
Mm-hmm. And there's Kraglin.
Oh, and Kraglin, yeah.
Kraglin.
Yeah, Kraglin. Which I love that he stabs himself with Yondu's arrow. He's still not good at it.
I like that they were like, he's like, oh, you told me to stay with the ship, and this is blah blah blah. We're married now. They're like, you have to stop marrying somebody on every planet we go to.
Yeah,
not okay.
I hope that pans out in Guardians 3 and maybe also the Christmas special.
There's going to be a Christmas special? Of course there is.
That's coming out first, I think this Christmas, and then Guardians 3 I think comes out next year. Or the year after next year. No, it's next year. Yeah, November of next year, I think, is when it comes out.
They need to stop now.
It's the last one, so
I don't believe their lies.
It is the last one. Because like Batista said, like, that's my last movie. I'm done. Like I want to do more. I want to do other things. James Gunn has said he's done. Sorry, I need to fix my mic. James Gunn has said he's done. Like he doesn't want to do any more Marvel movies, at least for right now. Probably because he's like, DC lets me do whatever I want. Marvel's got too many rules. And then besides, they fired me once before. I like DC lets me do whatever I want, whenever I want to. So I'm going over there to play in the better sandbox.
Because DC and Warner Brothers are crashing. They're like, well,
they're desperate. They're like, look, we don't care. Just make the movie.
Look, you did a good one, and like, go for it. Like, you made us money. Like, clearly you can do something we can't.
He is one of the few who's making them money. Like, between Peacemaker and Suicide Squad, he's batting 2 for 2.
I really can't think. The Batman pulled in a good number. I don't know who.
Matt Reeves did the Batman.
Yeah,
but that's in it. I just mean like stuff that's in the DC, like extended universe
Oh,
they're still trying to do. Yeah, it's James Gunn. I mean, technically Zack Snyder, but he's done doing movies.
yeah, he did the one and is like, he's still working through some personal things, of
Mm-hmm.
course.
Catherine Bigelow. Well, it's just Zack Snyder's moved on. He wants to do these Army of the Dead movies now for Netflix. Like that's what he likes doing. And then you think he's working on another movie too. But there's like, Catherine Bigelow's got Wonder Woman locked down. That's her whole thing. And I don't know who's doing Aquaman 2 or Shazam. But, they got some projects in the works. But
I
anyway,
mean, there's
back to
something.
Marvel stuff.
I think there's like a couple major plot points to talk about when it comes to this film, like Jane Foster's character having cancer and her
I
using.
thought that was great. I think it's really cool. Now,
I
granted, I
want to
thought they were gonna
rephrase
go,
that.
well, not her having cancer. I just meant I thought it was cool that they actually did the plot from the comics. Because I was worried that they were gonna just find a way to like MCU it up, where it's like, we don't want to do that. Let's just make something up. They're like, no, we're gonna do the Mighty Thor arc. And I think it's done pretty okay. I think the only thing I wish is that I don't know. I wish we had got more of Jane just being human, like without the powers, before we just like jump into her being Thor. And I know it's that the movie we kind of need to go, but I'm like, that's what I mean by it goes so fast. It's like we don't really feel like we get a lot of time to really dive into like some of the like smaller stuff that on paper seems like unnecessary details, but it would make the character feel a lot more fleshed out. Because like the thing about Jane especially is that unlike like Thor, we've seen this character through all 4 movies. Valkyrie, we got to know a lot about her in Thor Ragnarok. So, and she was in even though it was briefly, she was in Endgame for a while. So we got to like see her there too. So it's like we got to get to know this character a little bit more. With Jane, we haven't seen her since Thor 2. So there's a lot of time has passed, and it feels like they do like a flash in the pan of like what happened, and now she's got cancer, and now she's Thor. Here we go, moving on. And it's like, I wish we got more time with her to like, more time to see maybe if her like trying to work on her cancer or just deal with the reality of cancer or anything. Like we didn't get a lot, like we kind of just moved past it really quickly.
I get what you're saying with trying to like the coming to terms with the cancer or finding out or things like that. I get that part. But as for the years she was apart from Thor, I mean, she pretty much did the same thing she did with Thor, which was hide out in a basement doing sciencey stuff. Which, don't get me wrong, she like her achievements in the movie were amazing, and she got to be a well-known scientist, which is fantastic. But like even the person, Kat, I don't know her character's name.
Darcy.
Darcy is like, you can't keep hiding away in a basement. Can't keep doing that. So it's like she's still just in the basement doing the lab work. She sleeps on the couch as she did in all the other works where she's just really focused on her work, which is fair. I mean, she was actually doing very good work and it was impressive. Which is why issues arose with her and Thor, not because he was jealous of her work or anything, but because she gave everything to that work. And so I don't feel like there would have been much to see there, but I understand, like, yeah, finding out she had cancer and maybe following through those parts of like almost her downfall before we saw her uprise. But from what it sounded like, or the way they presented it, was that she immediately had like stage 4 cancer. And so like you didn't have she I guess she didn't have time to process. It almost felt like she only accepted the terms when Thor was like, you need to stay here. Like you can't fight. And it's only then she's kind of like, oh shit, I am actually really sick. Like
I think it would have been interesting too if they'd done it like they did it in the comics, where in the comics, Mighty Thor just shows up, and because there is no Thor becomes unworthy, taking pictures of your cat again while we're
I'm
doing the
sorry,
podcast?
he is super cute. Shut up. It's harder to do that when there's only you and me. Go on.
They're like in the comics, yeah, like Thor becomes unworthy, and so he can't pick up Mjolnir, and he just like goes away to like find himself essentially and become worthy again. And the next time we see Thor, they're just like mighty Thor, and it's a woman with like this beautiful blonde flowing hair and everything, and it's like, and she's like buff and powerful, and everyone was like, who is this person? And that was a big mystery for a lot of the mighty Thor run, or that first arc. And then you find out that it's Jane, but it's a shock because you haven't seen Jane for a while, and then and she's powerful, strong, beautiful, all this stuff. And then when she loses the hammer, or she drops the hammer, you see what she looks like, and she's emaciated, and her hair is falling out from the chemo treatments, and she looks completely different. She looks so weak compared to her mighty Thor form. That's the like, I know it would have been weird and probably would have been a lot of makeup to do, but I think it would have been interesting to see that too, because I'm like, you still got like all your hair and stuff, and you still look relatively healthy. Like in the face, you look definitely like gaunt.
Yeah, all they did was make
like
her paler and like give her like darker circles around the eyes.
Yeah, I'm like, I would have liked to see. That's what I mean by like, I feel like they could have done more with it if they had more time to utilize. And maybe in that like 4-hour cut they did do more, but that's what I mean by like, the movie moves so fast, it's hard to like see where there would have been time for these smaller moments. But I think they would have been necessary to like take the movie to the next level of, because you're dealing with a cancer plot. Like that's a pretty powerful thing, especially for a lot of people who are dealing with terminal illnesses. To see that person become a superhero, it's why Jane Foster's Mighty Thor, it was like a really big deal in the comic books, is that it's like, oh man, even like that's a unique thing, a person who has like this terminal illness and they're a superhero, and not only a superhero, like one of the most powerful superheroes at that.
Yeah,
like,
she has the powers of the gods.
Yeah, so it would have been, I think if they had taken more time with Jane's plot on that, it would have been a lot more
I think we should
hard-hitting.
have gotten more because it clearly she had been Thor for a bit, or Mighty Thor for a bit. If her and Tessa's character we got to see more of that interaction before Thor came, that would have been fantastic, because she was like, oh, you're gonna love the new guy. I was like, oh, so she's clearly been Mighty Thor for a minute. And so if we had gotten Valerie and Jane Foster working together, that alone, I would see a movie just for that.
Yeah, and that was the thing too. Valkyrie and Mighty Thor had such great chemistry. I was like, man, I feel like we missed out on like a whole lot of stuff that would have been great to see between Valkyrie and Mighty Thor, just like together as like these kind of like powerful sisters.
I will be upset when they release like the full version and they don't have that relationship there. I would be pissed. I'd be like, what?
I would love the director's cut.
What would be the other, like, what did you take out then? I don't care about anything else. If I don't have Valkyrie and Jane Foster, then I don't want it.
Yeah, release the Taika cut or the YTD cut, whatever one you want to call it.
I would watch it less begrudgingly than I did have to watch the Justice League.
Zack Snyder cut.
So much slow motion.
Yeah, I think, but overall though, I think Natalie Portman did a pretty okay job playing Mighty Thor. And I don't mean to say that as insulting way, like she did an okay job. More just that with what she was given and the amount of time she was given, I liked her on screen. I think she was fun. It was good to see her like have fun. You could tell she was just having a blast being the Mighty Thor.
No, I completely agree with you that we were kind of robbed of like Mighty Thor, and it's like there was so much more to present to us with this character, and
especially because she dies in this movie, and I was like, she's gonna die? Like, we just got this character.
I love the topic of death is throughout this whole film, because there is somebody trying to kill gods and stuff like that. It is so funny that they keep talking about Valhalla, and then they're like, "Oh, let me die a warrior's death." They're like, technically, you survived the battle, so you're not dying in battle. You survived, and now you're gonna die after. So you're not granted into Valhalla like that. So like, and then they told all the kids that like the kids, were kidnapped, and like they're scared and terrified, and they're like, "What's gonna happen to us?" They're like, "Well," Thor's like, "If you die, you all go to Valhalla. You die a warrior's death." They're like, "We don't want that yet." And so I loved how they talked about that almost throughout the whole film. Anytime somebody's like, "Oh, I'm worried about battle," then you will die a warrior's death, and you will be granted the eternal peace among the gods. And they're like, that's not as comforting as you think it is.
What's crazy is I think my favorite version of like diving into Viking mythology and culture is the new God of War games, because currently they're in Viking god mythology now, as opposed to Greek mythology. And there's a part where they talk about Valhalla, and they talk about like, yeah, and like who goes, because you go to hell with one L, not two. And they discuss like, yeah, some people go to hell, it's like it's either hell or Valhalla, and you go to hell for tons of things, not dying in battle, old age. I'm like, Kratos is like, you can die, you could go to hell for just growing old. He's like, hey, listen, you're never too old to fight. And I'm like, God damn, that's cold.
Yeah, that's a little like, I survived everything. I should get a like, how long it took me to get here? That's BS. I should get something.
Listen, you just gotta punch somebody on the bus and then just like and hope they kill you or something. I don't know. Like an old age to get into Valhalla real quick. It's like, kill me, do it.
I was like, I could go to certain streets in Chicago, but I don't know if those streets are like gentrified yet. And then like I can't go there, be like walking over there, be like, oh, they put in a Whole Foods. Okay, it's not the same here anymore. Speaking of Greek mythology, we get Zeus, god of lightning.
Yep, played by Russell Crowe.
Yeah, which again, I recognize and did not recognize. I had to ask you to be like, that is Russell Crowe, right? That man. Anyway,
he does a great job.
Oh no, he's fantastic.
I think he's very funny, but then also like kind of menacing too. Slightly as Zeus.
They go to Olympia.
Yeah, omnipotent city or something like that.
Yeah, omnipotent city is what they call it. To ask the help from all the gods, to stop this guy. And Zeus, of course, has always been the main one. Although Zeus, when you learn about Greek mythology when you're younger, Zeus is like the big bad god. And then you get older and you learn that nope, he's just a pervert. He's also the one who is, flicks Thor's robes off.
Yep, all the ladies in the audience were just like, yeah.
Yeah, we all got
probably some dudes too. Just
and I'm asexual too, but you gotta appreciate that.
I will say he's been working out, man. He's even bigger than he used to be.
He's know,
like huge.
Yeah, because they had him like this, so his muscles, also his just like back was like really straining. And I do love how he got a Loki tattoo. Like, yeah, I did see that in the like trailers and stuff, but like to actually see it like in the movie, I don't know. It was like, oh, more.
And I'm curious if Loki will show up because he's technically still alive. He's just in the TVA right now.
Yeah, well, they trapped him. He has no powers.
But he does have like a temp pad or whatever, so he can go into the timeline if he wants to and go say hi to Thor real quick. So I wonder if they'll ever bring him back.
That's a whole thing. There was an episode, I think it was the second episode, where I didn't notice it at first until somebody pointed it out. It starts raining or there's thunder, and Loki actually turns back around and looks up at the sky. And somebody was like, he's looking for Thor. He's looking for his brother. And I was like, why would you make this moment so sad for me? Like, the guy is just walking into a building. All of a sudden, I'm like, okay. But I really love is why I bring up that flicking scene too was because they were there with Valkyrie, Jane Foster, and Korg, and they were threatening. They're like, "Oh, let's get rid of the disguises of your companions." And they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait, it's not good." And they like ripped off their disguises. They're like, "Look, you don't, no flicking, no flicking, absolutely no flicking." So he like threatened to do it to like everybody else, and they're like, "Absolutely not," because they were just chilling, eating grapes while all this was going on. While Thor was talking to Zeus and like working everything out and naked. They're like, "Should we do
I love
something?"
that all of his concubines or whatever like just pass out. Like all the dudes too, even the guards, they're just like, God dang, all
Well,
that sexiness on one man.
even like Valkyrie and Jane Foster were, Jane was like, should we do something? And Valkyrie's like, wait a minute. And like hands her like the thing of grapes and like, let's wait a second.
No, let it
There's no
be.
rush.
But I mean, we could help. Let it be.
Yeah, pretty much. But I do love that he like threatened to do it to them, and they were immediately like, wait a second, and they like ripped off their disguises, and they're like, no flicking,
Like,
do not flick
pride.
us. Yeah, do not flick us. That whole scene in the Omnipotent City was I like so much because one, they mentioned so many different gods, and they also mentioned like, was it the miso god? Is that what they called him? The little dumpling
so.
god?
That was so cute. He's like, hey, Bao.
And everybody in the theater, everybody was like, oh, like
it was really
this,
cute.
Like, wave. It was
adorable.
It was so cute. I loved it. It was like, oh, it's just like a little dumpling. Like that
with
was
anime eyes. They knew what they were doing. Like
absolutely.
Anime eyes, everything.
Absolutely. That's the god I would worship. I don't know if he's like the god of miso soup or something, but I like miso soup. Not all the time. I like the broth more than anything.
I think it's also interesting that there were not Eternals, but Celestials there, which I was like, oh wow, that's cool. Celestials are also here in Omnipotent City.
It's like it was almost not even, it wasn't just Greek gods. I think they had a couple Egyptian gods too that I saw. So that was just like the city of the gods, which is really interesting that they just brought all of it together in one place, because they do make a distinction. Thor is a Viking god, and they often say that he's a Viking warrior, he's a Viking space warrior. They're constantly saying that. So I like how they openly admit how many different like gods there are, religions and all that stuff, and like the belief system of all that. They're like, nobody's wrong. We're all kind of here, but we're all none of us are also paying attention. So like, it doesn't matter what god you believe in, nobody's paying attention. They were planning an orgy when Thor stopped by. So like
that's true. They were planning the orgy.
They were planning like an orgy. They're like, where are we gonna hold this? So like that was a weird kind of like nice. That is where Krog got like blown up too.
Yeah, I thought Korg was gonna die there for a second. I was like, God dang, like y'all gonna kill Korg like this? And then he's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, oh well, whatever.
Oh my god, when Korg explained how his people are made, that was the cutest shit ever. Him, his two dads go to a lava pit, hold hands over a lava pit for like, I think that he said like a month or something like that.
Yeah, and then the little Korg is little Krogan is made. That's his race, to Krogan.
The little Korg made. I love that. And then he found somebody at the end named Dwayne.
Yep.
Which I love.
Which I'm like, of course. Let me guess, it's Dwayne the Rock Johnson because he's a rock man. Is that the joke?
I honestly didn't put that together till right now. I was just like swept up in the cuteness of it.
I mean, I don't know if that is the joke, but I'm assuming that's the joke. I
think that's the joke. That is probably the joke. It makes so much sense. So
I will say, we talked about when we did our Doctor Strange review, we talked about how America was she had the pride pin, and how it was like for some LGBT reviewers, they were upset that there wasn't a lot of representation with America, as far as like her actually being known, that it being known that she was queer, and we were like, there wasn't really time, and I still stand by that. This movie, however, there was time for them to show Tessa Thompson have a girlfriend or something. Like, all we get is she kisses one of the Zeus's concubines like hand, and then there's possible like her flirting with Jane a little bit, but that's it. That was like, of all the movies, this was the one where you could have her like, I don't know, just have a bunch of girls,
Yeah,
even if you
but
didn't want to give her a girlfriend, just have a bunch of girls that she's like banging or whatever, and she's just like, all right, sorry girls, gotta go, I gotta go save the day, and then she just leave or something. You could do more and be more playful with it in this movie, because this one's
I
a comedy,
I
so it could
do
be fun.
agree with that. And then they kind of gave the excuse because Korg was like, "Oh, you just don't get attached to anybody, sleep with countless people, numb yourself with alcohol because you lost your whole sisterhood in a battle and you watched them die, and now you can't lose anybody else." So she's like, "Yeah, something like that," and I was like, "I like it. I like how they made that." But yeah, no, you're right. This time they could have had something. She could have had like a harem herself because she
That's
was
why I think it would, because I don't think she should have had a girlfriend. I don't think she's that type of character, but I think she is the type of character to be kind of like a female Thor, in the sense that Thor slept with a lot of women, I'm sure, before Jane.
Oh yeah,
And I'm like, it'd be cool.
no, they pointed that out.
Yeah,
He
because he has like a wolf woman
yeah,
and
on
a
a wolf.
pirate lady. Yeah, on a wolf. So I'm like, I feel like it'd be cool if Valkyrie was just like, yeah, I got like a bunch of girls around here
Yeah,
that I've slept with. Like
Valkyrie would
it's,
have been perfect to do it. Yeah. No, I
yeah,
love that character in general, but you're right.
she's
They should have given her
fun.
more.
And I'm glad she stays fun throughout the entire movie. Like there's I'm like, man, you like, because realistically, Sif is like Thor's like girl best friend, but Sif is always considered to be very serious. Which I feel like they underutilize Sif so much. I mean, she's in this movie, but she don't do anything. She's just there. And then
Well, she's
and then
king.
she's just in the no, Lady Sif is just, she's just a warrior.
No, I meant in the movie. She's king.
No, you're talking about Valkyrie.
Oh, oh,
No,
you're
I'm
talking
talking about
about
Lady
no.
Sif.
Oh yeah, she
Like,
loses
yeah,
an arm in this film.
she loses an arm and that's it. And then she's like out the movie for the rest of the film. So until the very end. So I was like, so, but if they're not going to use Sif, like, I'm like, Valkyrie makes for a cool best friend for Thor. And so I like their dynamic, but it's just, I wish they would do more with Valkyrie now that she's like an established character. Because in Thor Ragnarok, they were establishing her character. So it's like, okay, we need to like get to know this person, and she's brand new. Now that she is in the MCU, it's like y'all should use her more.
Oh
Like
yeah.
she's in the
And
game
she's
now.
so well loved and liked, and like her character is like relatable. She's a warrior. She was trained to be a warrior, and then she got thrown into king, which is all this politics and like a tourist town she's dealing with, and she's having to sit there and listen to everything, and you can see how it's like draining her and how much more life she becomes when she's able to be on the battlefield again and
Mm-hmm.
do these missions. And I think, yeah, they did not use her character enough. They should have used her more or presented more of her. But Sif is the one who is is the one who got injured in battle, and and she's like, "Let me die and let me go to Valhalla." And Thor's like, "You're not gonna go to Valhalla." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Well, you survived the battle. You didn't die in battle. You're dying from the injuries in battle, but it's like the battle's done."
Yeah,
And she's
and it's
like,
gonna take a while. So
"Yeah, it's gonna be a minute because you just lost your arm, but you're not bleeding out." And she's like, "Oh, then get me out of here."
I do like that she was wearing her comic accurate costume for once with the crown and everything. I was like, that's cool.
Oh, that was a cool
Um,
outfit. I was gonna ask. I meant to ask you
yeah,
that.
it's a
I
great
usually
outfit
keep all
from I
comic
think from
questions to like the end of the movie.
yeah. It is from like that particular run of Thor at that time. And it looked great. So I love it. Um just like getting through all the Asgardians real quick. What did you think about Thor this time around for Thor 4?
Thor 4. Uh, he got kind of annoying at times. I won't lie, because he was like very whiny. but I enjoyed him. It was almost like they were taking him back to the beginning, but then he was trying to discover him or figure out who he really was. And oftentimes when you try to figure out who you are, you regress. You go back to the person you knew the strongest. And that's who he was. He was like a himbo who threw his weapon around without any idea of like property damage. And here he gives up being basically a god. He accepts his fate as like a Viking space warrior. So
Mm-hmm.
Thor drops being a god, and I think that's another thing we see in this movie is clearly he's, even though they're trying to kill him for it and he's like, oh, I'm still the god of thunder, he doesn't wear the title like he used to because he's not taking charge, he's not being at the forefront. He's just like, I'm just fighting and that's it. So I think it's very interesting to see this as, if you think about it, as Thor not being a god at all. It's almost like he's trying to work up to his status as actual god again. And this is his almost, this is kind of his redemption, where he's like saving children's lives, doing what he can, not allowing his emotions and, you know, the shock of Jane Foster dying or having cancer or anything like that affect him, because he has to focus on the mission. He has to do what is good, you know, for the greater good style. So I think we kind of, if you, this is definitely a middle-age crisis movie. He's going through some
Mm-hmm.
shit. But I
I
think this is a
think
movie that allows him to almost reclaim his stance as a god.
I think it's that he's like, and this is what I mean by like, I think there's some more stuff that was left on that cutting room floor that would have been neat to see, because I think they're trying to, the implications that he doesn't want to be a god anymore, like to your point, but that he also, the reason he doesn't want to be a god is because he feels like he's probably destined to do something more than that. And in this case, it's be a dad, because we get that implication where him and Jane, when we're doing that montage of them together, he sees a baby, and that's like, it is to imply that he's thinking like, maybe I could have kids with Jane. Like I would love to, you know, for her to be my wife, but also maybe a mother of the mother of my child. And then also the way he is with the kids when he like projects into their cage to talk with them, like he's being like total dad mode. So and then at the end of this movie, he is the dad technically,
To
because he's
what's her
taking
name?
care of Gore's daughter, which
Eternity?
I don't know. Like I think she is supposed to be Singularity because she doesn't get a name, and we see her with like the Eternity kind of like silhouette in the reflection pool when we go see Eternity. So I think she is supposed to be Singularity, but they haven't confirmed that. So I'm
Oh,
just
her
gonna
name
call
is
her.
Love.
Yeah, see, that's
Love
what I
and
mean. It's like
Thunder.
it says it's called Love in the movies. I'm like, is she supposed to be Singularity and they've like changed her name, or is she not Singularity at all and they're making up a new character? I don't know. Um,
I love how really quick though at the end when they're like, "Oh, this is a story about Thor, love and thunder. You know, the gods of love and thunder." And everybody in the theater was like,
well,
"Oh,
because the title was confusing. A lot of people were like, "What does that mean?" Well, and they assumed it meant that Jane, with Jane coming back, the character coming back, that they were like, "Oh, because he's in love with Jane,
yeah."
and that's his love." And then Thunder, because he's the god of thunder. That makes sense. But it's like, no, actually, it's about this child and Thor going on adventures together. I'm like, cool. Excuse
So,
me.
but it was still
But
funny. Just like every single person in the theater, you just heard a collective, "Oh." It's that. I didn't know there was a confusion, so I was confused to why everybody was suddenly like realization, and I'm just sitting there being like, "Hey, this is cute."
I thought Thor was okay in this movie. I think at this point Chris Hemsworth can do this role in his sleep. Like he is Thor. Like he just captures the character so well. And I think it's fun, like the way he plays Thor, and that Thor really is like even though he's more or less dumb, he's very much like a dumb jock. He still has like a heart of gold, you know, like he wants to do the right thing. He wants to be take care of people, and he cares about people. And it's not like a thing where it's like, yes, because I'm the hero, I must care about these people. It's like, no, Thor genuinely cares about his people and the people around him and his friends. And he's like, no, I love you guys. Like, you're my friends. Like, you're the woman I love. You're my like best friend. Like, I love these people. And it is cool because it's like, it's interesting. It's why Thor has such a unique identity, because, you know, Iron Man is the like cynical, narcissistic scientist. Captain America is the extremely hopeful, super soldier, soldier. Thor is just the humble, like caring, dumb guy with like all the strength, all the strength to be like a terrible person, and he uses all of it for honestly just like straight up good.
Yeah, well, like it's when the original Avengers where they're talking about Loki and he's like, watch your mouth, that is still my brother. And they're like, he's killed this many people. He's like, well, I mean, he is adopted, but like that's still my brother. So it's like he, no matter what his brother does, there's a clear bond and caring he does. And it shows that throughout the films how you, no matter what his brother does, there's an immense love there. And I think you're able to see that with him, that he's able to love him despite everything he's done. How many times Loki has tried to kill him, and that cute story from Thor Ragnarok where he's like, oh, there was a little green snake and I picked it up because I love snakes. And then it was like Loki turned into himself and was like, and then stabbed me with a knife. He's like, it was very rude of him. And it's like he forgave him so quickly though. And so he still always sees the good in people, because I think of his relationship with Loki, because he always knew, like, no matter what his brother did, it was his brother, adopted or not. And he was trying to see that with I'm sorry, what was the villain's name?
Oh, Gore.
He was trying to see that with Gore. He understood what it was like to have somebody taken from you and to feel like nobody could understand your pain and to him as well, the gods weren't listening, because Odin had passed, his mother had passed, and Loki was, the almost like the last god of his type style or his family. And so he understood what it was like for the gods not to hear you, and almost like silence, to be encased in silence. And so that's why he was so willing to speak to Gore and be like, look, if you want to destroy all the gods, fine. Yeah, at this point, go for it. I've lost everything. With Jane Foster dying, I can't do it anymore. And Gore saw that, pain, and was like, I get what you're saying now, because I gave up everything who I am because my daughter died too. And when he gave him that idea of like, you can just ask for your daughter back, if you recall, you can just have her back. Why did Gore have to die? Was that he was just
the Necrosword just like taken all of his life force at that point, so he was just gonna die anyway.
Okay, I was wondering that, because I was like, he was still technically alive when he got this, didn't it? But I get, yeah, because Yor was doing that to Jane Foster too.
I think it's interesting, the Thor thing. Also, just real quick, just to backtrack to Thor, I thought about like, because we're for those who don't know, we are playing D&D currently, and a D&D game will be coming out soon on YouTube, and also maybe on our Twitch channel as well. We will keep you posted on that. So follow us on Instagram at First Ones to Die, as well as our other social medias, to find out when that happens. But just to relate it, like, as far as, because when I think the Trinity of the MCU, I always think it's Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. And so it's like Iron Man is clearly like chaotic good, Captain America's lawful good, and then I like to think Thor is in the middle at neutral good. He's just a good dude, just neutrally. He's just a neutral guy.
He just tries to be, yeah. He does destruction, so he doesn't care what happens. I think he's chaotic good. The neutral good. He's chaotic.
Well, chaotic good is where like you'll do good, but even if it means you have to hurt other people to do it, like it is like good is very like, hey, it's it was for the greater good. I don't care. Like how Tony built Ultron, and even after Ultron went rogue, he was still like, but I did this for like
temple. That's a chaotic good, no? Like he destroyed a whole temple.
Yeah, but the temple was an accident versus like Ultron was intentional. He
No,
meant to make a robot overlord. He just didn't expect it to go evil versus like, he made that without thinking of the oversight versus Thor was like he was genuinely trying to save the temple. And then, but it's just,
it
he
was
just didn't
still.
take into account the fact of how strong he is. And then the whole thing shattered.
I still think he's more chaotic good than anything. He'll just be like, I'm gonna go do this. And it's like, Thor, don't do it. I already did it. So I feel like that's where it falls, where he's like chaotic good.
But I think it's interesting them dealing with the weapons in this movie, especially because like I love the relationship between Thor and his hammers, where Storm, every time he's trying to get back with Mjolnir, Stormbreaker's just like, hey, what's going on in here? Well, so since your ex showed up, now I'm just what, chopped liver? Oh, you just forgot about me, huh? You forgot how, hey, all those adventures we went on together, it was me that saved the day at Endgame. Remember that?
When he tries to call it back in the town meeting, and then Stormbreaker?
Yeah, Stormbreaker.
Stormbreaker, sorry, came like to his side. He's like, hey, yeah, I was calling you. Who else would I be calling? It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Like pours a beer on it. It's like, here, your first beer. Yeah. Stormbreaker.
You should have bonded with that. Stormbreaker did a lot for him. And then he gave him that whole cool rainbow bridge, and he's still being rude about it.
Mm-hmm.
I like how they had a moment with Stormbreaker. Like when he gave him his foot, he was like, look, I know things have been rough between us. And like, I know seeing my ex hammer is a lot, but like, we're together now. And it's going to be a little weird, but like, you're with me and you're my weapon and my Stormbreaker. And it's okay. And the way he talks to it, it's just like, this is such a sweet moment.
But even with the Necro sword, like it was really cool to see like how it corrupted Gore and like turned him like evil. And then like with the effect with the yellow eyes and stuff, I was like, man, this is really cool. And also the design, I love this. It's a normal looking sword that's all black. But I feel like there's so much like in its simplicity. I feel like there's so much legend behind that sword, which I'm a huge like fan of, like especially in D&D when you like name your weapon. I'm like, that's like, it's cool. Like it's one of my favorite parts of Game of Thrones. And they're like, what is the sword called? It's like, yeah, because that matters. Like a sword, like yes, the warrior is legendary, but a warrior is just as legendary as the weapon they use to become that legend. So it's
you
cool
have to like
it's
name
like,
it in battle. Because I was watching The Hobbit. I watched all the Hobbits and Lord of the Rings. And when Bilbo has his sword, they're like, it doesn't have a name. Like, you just have a sword. It's like a letter opener for you, or what the elves use. So like, you have to get a name in battle. It doesn't have anything. He's like, oh, well, fine. And then he goes and tries to kill the orcs with his little letter opener. Oh my god, I love The Hobbit. I like it better than Lord of the Rings. I know a lot of people don't like Lord of the Rings more than The Hobbit, but I'm still all The Hobbit. I think it's because of Martin Freeman.
I like Lord of the Rings more than The Hobbit, but it's mainly just because Lord of the Rings feels like it has to be 3 movies. The Hobbit doesn't. But that's a different argument for a different day.
Fair enough.
But speaking of Gore, he's probably the last one we're gonna hit on because everybody else is just auxiliary. But Gore, I love Gore in this movie. I get why they had to change his character, because in the comics he's like an alien, and he has like no nose. He's kind of like a weird like
Voldemort.
Kind of Voldemort character, and they said that's the reason they did not do his design in the movie, is because they didn't want Voldemort comparisons.
That's fair.
Because he's a Dark Lord that's hooded with no nose. You know what I mean? It's like the comparisons are too easy to make. So they were like, no, we're just gonna leave him the same for the movie, which was a smart decision. But I think regardless, Gore was still great as a villain. And I honestly wish they hadn't killed him, because he's not dead in the comics currently. He's still around. I think. I don't read a lot of Thor, so as far as I know, he's still around. But I'm like, Marvel keeps doing this. They'll make great villains and then they'll kill them. And I'm like, no, leave these people alive so we could have great moments with them down the road.
Well, we got an even more exciting villain coming up, Hercules, because it looked originally like Zeus was murdered when they took his lightning bolt, and Thor, or was it Valkyrie who's threw?
Yeah, Thor took it, or Valkyrie took it, but Thor's the one who threw it and killed
Yeah.
Zeus.
So, and then you get a mid-credit scene where it is his Zeus is calling his son Hercules, and for some reason, originally I heard Achilles, and like my brain heard Achilles, but then I'm like, oh no, he said Hercules. Why did I hear Achilles? Uh, so we're gonna get Achilles. We're gonna get Hercules, which
Which is cool because I'm like, Hercules is an interesting character in the comics, and I think Thor and him have fought a couple times. At least when Hercules first got introduced. Now Hercules has been like an Avenger. He's helped out with like different space adventures. Him and Thor have teamed up from time to time. Like, so Hercules is an interesting character, and I'm curious what they're going to do with him because I don't think he's going to be the villain of the next movie. I think he'll be an antagonist, and then maybe team up with him after, like team up with Thor during the movie, because he is
he's
uh
gonna set to kill Thor.
yeah, but he is like a hero in the Marvel comics. Hercules is a hero amongst the
Isn't it
pantheon.
considered like for gods to kill each other a bad thing? Like I feel like
I mean,
that's a thing. To kill a god's a bad thing, and then like to have gods kill each other, that's like a whole nother separate like court issue. At least from like old stories I've read that have like other gods in them, they're like you can't kill another god. That's like basically their version of like illegal. You can kill anything else, that's fine, but like you can't kill
I mean,
another god
depends on the
because
continuity, and also I think in this movie they kind of make it where gods are more or less just beings in space, but they're not like real gods. Like it's weird with the Marvel universe, and like I knew it was gonna get weird when they did the Eternals movie, and then they were like, yeah, so there are like gods kind of, but really the real gods are the Celestials because they made everything. And I'm like, okay, so then like every other god beneath is like beneath them. Then
well
basically is what you're
that's
saying.
why like demigods, that's why. But then why was Zeus ahead of everything when there was celestial gods there too? I think they just wanted a reason to bring in Zeus and Hercules. But don't get me
Yeah,
wrong,
well, yeah, because they want to do Hercules. Yeah,
I love how Russell Crowe played this character. It was great. He did a great job. He played it perfectly. You're right. He did the menacing part just right, where it was still a threat. It was a good threat, even though he's like talking about orgies. And then when he gets close to Thor, he's like, "Look, this guy is a threat. I will admit this, but we can't do anything. If he has a sword, he can kill us. You're just gonna you're gonna create you and your weirdness." It's like we can't create panic because what's gonna happen when a bunch of gods are panicking, which is a good. I get his point of view. He still should have helped. He should have still like given him like some people to fight an army, but I get it. I mean, you've seen mob mentality. Think about
mm-hmm.
mob mentality with gods. That's probably like 100 times worse. So I can see where they had his character come with that, and that's for that menacing part was like, look, this it kind of gives like a hinting of like, look, this shit has happened in the past with God mob mentality. This is why I'm not doing anything about it now. This is why like you want to go fight, you go fight. Um,
Yeah, I
but
think I just think it's sad that Gore is gone now. But I'm glad at least that his arc had a really interesting arc. That it's not that at the end he was like, because he was about to, he virtually won because he could have still made his wish and been like, all right, all gods, I want all gods dead. But instead, it's like Thor does convince him to do a different path, and I think that's really interesting that that's the way Gore is beaten in this movie, as opposed to just we punched him really hard with the hammers and then like he died. um it's interesting that he did get to that kind of resolution. um Also, it's cool to see Eternity. I never thought we'd ever see Eternity in a Marvel movie, and he looks exactly the way he does in the comics. Even sometimes if you look closely you could see Eternity's face in the where the head of Eternity would be, and I was like, that's really interesting and cool. um the way they did it. Again, this movie, the way they use like color and negative space and design is just impeccable. It's really good.
I will say, because I was having a conversation about this with somebody about how, and I understand why, like when they create gods or things of that nature or monsters or stuff, there's still a lot of human to animal features. And it's simply because we as humans cannot fathom something we do not understand. To create something else like a new god and its appearance, we'd have to still create something almost a human effect to understand it properly. But when I saw like the foot of this god, because it was sitting cross-legged, I was like, why though? Like, did you really need the feet? And then like all I could my brain went back to everything everywhere all at once. And I thought about the bagel where she explains it like, look, I wanted to put everything in one place, so I made the everything bagel. And I was like, that weirdly feels like it makes more sense than like a random celestial god with the human features. But if they're the ones, creating everything, of course they would create the humans closer in their image. But I always think it's weird when they have gods like that with no actual embodiment have the outline of a body. And I even asked you, because like I said, at the end of movies or stuff like that, if we go to see a comic book movie, I'm like, all right, was this an actual thing or did they make it up? Because you're the resident comic book nerd. So I usually go to you and be like, hey, I got a question about like comics.
Yeah, it's weird that they did Eternity. But I didn't hate it. I was like, cool, Eternity's here. Like, and yeah, I just thought it was weird that they like killed off Gore. But maybe we'll get more with now that since the daughter comes back and now she's being raised by Thor, maybe we might get some flashbacks with her and Gore as her dad in future. I think they say they want to do one more movie to like finish out Taika Waititi's like trilogy of Thor movies.
Which I hopefully he keeps the color pattern. Because
yeah, I would love to see another Thor movie made like this, like as far as the color and presentation.
Taika Waititi, he's just a good director and a good actor. I was recommending to Kaylee, and I don't know if you watched it, but it's What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show. He does
I've
direct
seen the
that.
movie. I haven't seen the TV show.
You don't need to watch the movie to see the TV show, but like it's still a good movie to see. The show is coming back on July 14th for the 4th season. I'm so excited because the way they ended it on the 3rd season, one character screwed over a lot of other characters, and like you leave that episode so pissed, like, you asshole. You ruined so many things. So I'm excited for season 4. And then of course he was Blackbeard in Our Flag Means Death. And the more I look at his, because I didn't know who he was too much. I was aware of him, but I didn't know too much about his work until like Our Flag Means Death. And I started looking over stuff and I'm like, oh, I've seen this movie. I really enjoyed it. Oh, I've seen this movie. I really enjoyed it. Oh, okay. And like it ended up being like, I've seen a ton of his work. I've seen a ton of his acting. And I'm like, oh, I always really enjoyed this guy. And I just was like, hey, I know that act is one of those. I knew that actor, but never properly looked him up. So I love that you can also tell his directing style and the way the films are made, because no matter what, they always have this like hint of real life comedy. Because like what Thor was going through with his midlife crisis, trying to find his thing, is like something everybody can connect with. No matter, even if he's a Viking space warrior, you can still connect with him on so many like points of like, what am I supposed to do? Do I want a family? I don't, but like people think that. So it's the real life connections in a humorous way that he presents them is so good. He does it so well.
It's really good, and I can't wait for Thor 5, whatever it will be called, because technically none of these Thor movies have had numbers. They've all just had subtitles. So it's been Thor Ragnarok, Thor Love and Thunder. Don't know what Thor 5 will be, but it'll be cool to see for sure. And then curious who like the main villain will be. Also, I'm curious if we'll ever get Beta Ray Bill in one of these. Beta Ray Bill is a character in the comics who is like an alien who is also worthy of the hammer of Thor and also often dresses like Thor. And they become like really good friends. They become like best friends. And on top of that, Stormbreaker, the hammer, that's his hammer in the comics is Stormbreaker. And because Thor, the Mjolnir's never been destroyed in the comics. So Thor's always had Mjolnir, and Beta Ray Bill was gifted Stormbreaker by Odin because he was like, man, you're worthy too. And you're a badass. Here, have your own hammer.
So 2 comments. Because we're getting close to our time. 1, does he only know one pattern of outfits? Can he only style people in like one outfit? Because like
it's more like it's iconic. You can't beat it. So
yeah,
it always looks good.
Get the hammer myself, I wouldn't want any traces of gold on me. So I like the gray silver they have, but I'm not a fan of capes. I think capes are too much. If I ever got the mirror, I would like try to.
I liked the capes, especially when they had the scene in the black and white and the cape. All 3 of their capes are flowing in the wind, like Valkyrie and 2 Thors. I was like, man, that looks cool. Then with the capes, more capes in the MCU. Like there are other characters that have them, and they've done like none of them.
Like cloak styles. Like I'm gonna wear a cloak, but I'm not a cape fan. I won't wear a cape. I think it's like too much, and he's just constantly behind me and stuff. Second comment. At the beginning of this film, you get a surprise Matt Damon. And I didn't want to leave that out.
That's a carryover from Ragnarok too, because he's in Ragnarok also as the same character.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's cool that they brought that back. Also, friggin' Melissa McCarthy shows up.
She does. I was
just like, okay.
She just popped. She literally popped out of nowhere. She's like, "I Thor, Loki, I am your sister."
It was so cheap too. I was like, y'all couldn't put any more money out to make this story not look this cheap.
Because they create the scene where they're all meeting and Odin dies and she breaks the hammer and the hammer goes on a string, but kind of slows and gets stuck, so she has to kind of reach out a little further. That whole thing was just great, and I do love that they brought it from Ragnarok and they updated it. And when when Gore comes and causes all this trouble, Matt Damon and I don't know who his partner was in the other actor.
It's the third Hemsworth brother, not Luke. I forget his name right now. Dang it, and he's in Westworld. But it's him. It's Chris's brother. Yeah. Dang it, I gotta look it up now because it's gonna bother me.
Really, that's his brother. Anyway, while everything's going on.
No, it is Luke. I'm sorry, because I'm thinking of Liam. No, it is Luke.
Yeah,
Luke
if you said it isn't Luke, and I'm like, that is not Liam Hemsworth unless he's done a Russell Crowe style.
That was Luke Hemsworth, and then the person who played Odin is Sam Neill, who I'm like, he's batting 1,000. He's in Jurassic World 4, now he's in like Jurassic World 3, and now he's in this movie.
He's just gonna be
and Melissa McCarthy. I was like, all right.
Just everything was just great about that, and I bring that up because when everything happened, they were like, look, we know it's tragic, but somebody should start working on like the play, the recordings, stuff like that, to kind of tell story, because people are going to need, some cheeriness. And she just Valkyrie just walks away, and they're like, I didn't hear no though, right? You didn't hear no? No. We should go do this. And that's what I just love about that, because it also reminds me, because like back then, like during like Greek and Roman times and stuff like that, those playwrights and like bards and all that stuff, they were actually record keepers. They're the ones who like went to these things, wrote down notes, wrote plays and stuff like that. It's like technically they are doing what they're supposed to do. They're recording and presenting the moments that occur that are big, but at the same time, the cheesiness of it is just so good. And I love how they have people fake crying when Odin dies. And the glitter scene, he's like, oh, I'm turning into gold dust, and he goes, and then you see Odin like literally crawl across the stage, and it was just so freaking good. Like everything about it was just
It was great. They would definitely one-upped it from Thor Ragnarok scene. It was even better than that version of it.
He even put like eye drops in his eyes, Matt Damon's character.
Mm-hmm.
He's still playing Loki. But yeah, I mean, honestly, just go to the movie to see that part. If you don't like Thor,
Yeah.
that part's just great. If you need an excuse, if you're like, I don't want to see it, but I want to see it, because people are weird nowadays.
I don't want to see it, but you know what? Screw it. I'll go.
People are weird. You know how people can be. So it's like, if you want to see it, but you need an excuse to see it for some weird reason, go to see it for the cheesy play that's in the first 20 minutes of it.
So what's your grade for this movie and final thoughts, like final wrap up?
I give this movie a B. Just because it was presented well, I did enjoy it. I didn't have any major issues with it. Taika Waititi is one of my favorites. I like how much of a himbo Thor was, and he stuck with it. He didn't try to present himself as something greater. He was like, look, I'm going through some stuff. I'm going to do my best, but like, I'm going through stuff. And that whole, all those scenes in the omnipotent city was just gold. It was just great. I loved every bit of it. And I do wish we got more of Jane Foster's character and more Valkyrie's character interacting, especially because there was moments where they were like best friends or close friends, that Jane was able to confide in her about having cancer and all that stuff. I wish we got more of that. And hopefully in the director's cut we'll be able to see it. They did do more. If not, then I don't know why they bothered with the director's cut. So I think it's a B. It's solid. Again, warning for anybody who suffers from migraine or photosensitivity. This is the god of thunder, but he does deal with a lot of lightning. So keep that in mind, but definitely a B, and I recommend it.
I give this movie a B minus. I loved a lot of the acting in this. I thought it was, if it wasn't great, it was at least good. The comedy, like a lot of it sticks for me. It's very funny. I liked a lot of the color grading of this movie and the shifts in color and the use of the effects. It was really awesome. Gore was fantastic. I wish we had more of him, but the little bit we did get was great. I thought Christian Bale committed 100% to playing that character and did a great job. But again, I think those pacing issues is what, like, for me, just keeps it from being an A status for me. And also, like you said, like a lot of the supporting characters just didn't really get enough time to really breathe like they did in Ragnarok. And I don't know if that was just because that was left on the cutting room floor, or maybe just originally, like in the original script, they just didn't have or didn't make time to do that. I just would have loved to see more moments with a lot more of that supporting cast, especially since Jane's character especially gets a lot of really powerful stuff to do with her character. And it's a shame that, thinking of deaths, that is a shame. It's a shame that she's dead too, although the end credit scene kind of leaves it open. So, like with her going to Valhalla, it's like it leaves it open that maybe, she could come back if they really wanted to do it. They could do something where she could come back. She is currently a Valkyrie in the comics, so it'd be really cool if they brought her back as a Valkyrie. Or if they brought her back as just Mighty Thor in general. I mean, the hammer now still exists. Mjolnir is just fixed now. So who's to say?
But now Stormbreaker's with love.
Yeah, so I don't know what the plans are for the next Thor movie, but I'm excited to see what they are. But overall, this movie, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I got to see it. And it is like, it's not like high up there as far as one of my favorite Marvel movies of all time, but it's definitely one of the good ones. I definitely enjoy it a lot. So that's our thoughts on Thor Love and Thunder. Tell us what you thought, if you have seen it. Comment below on the YouTube video, or just message us, TM us on our social media like Instagram and stuff. Tell us what you thought about the movie, and if you haven't seen it, tell us what you're excited to see. First of all, you've watched this whole spoiler review if you've gotten to this point, so I mean that's on you. But tell us what you're excited to see anyway. Like, what parts are you excited to go into in this new Thor movie? But before we go, socials. Alex, where can people find you if they want to comment, talk about stuff, talk about your cats or cat?
The other cat's dead. I gotta stop doing that. Really, it makes people uncomfortable. Anyway, you can find me at Alex and Nobody on Instagram and on TikTok. You can also see most of what I do on TikTok, The First Ones to Die, where I show little clips of podcast past and future, and also some of the editing I do, or late night editing when I get really bored, or hear me make commentary about Star Trek, because I also have just been binge watching that again. I love it. Star Trek's always my favorite. And you can find us on all social media at The First Ones to Die, such as Twitter, Instagram, again, TikTok as well. And you can always DM us there or send us an email at thefirstones2die@gmail.com. Where can we find you, Jerome?
You can find me at Not Jerome Rhett on Instagram, as well as at RoboZoo Media and at Jerome_the_show for other creative things that I am working on. Also, if you want to get exclusive extra content that you can't get on the audio streams, streaming sites or our social medias, check out The First Ones to Die at YouTube, and you can see all types of things like gaming videos, blogs, book reviews, mini reviews, and of course video versions of the podcast. And we've got video versions for every episode, so go on over there. Some of them are even in person, like last week when we had Monica Moreno from Cafe with Strangers as our guest. First of all, if you haven't seen or listened to Cafe with Strangers, check that out. It's a great podcast. But secondly, she was a delight to have. We miss her already. Can't wait to have her back. Alex, you're going to say something.
I was just going to mention that the podcast is interviewing people of Latin background and living in the Pacific Northwest, which is, it's nice. It's a great way to connect, like myself, being Mexican and knowing what it's like. So it's comforting to hear, and knowing the share experience of everybody, being a first generation as well. And they are really fun, and they have ADHD too, which is a lot like me. So if you're wondering what they're like, a little bit like me, although they need to interrupt more. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Although, and I apologize, I did. I don't think I used their proper pronouns. Is they them. So if you do message them, it's they them. That's on me. Sorry about that. But that's all we have for you. Tune in next week when also we will have the return of our other co-host, Jonathan, which I forgot to mention that at the top of this podcast. But Jonathan is currently on hiatus. But come next week, next Monday, he will be right here on the First Inside podcast. So for all the Jonathan fans who's been missing him this whole month, Jonathan's coming back. So be excited for that. And we're going to talk about something. We don't know quite yet, but it's going to be something. And the only way to find out what that something is to tune in next week. So we will see you next week.
Also, Cheddar's leg.
Also,
Cheddar's leg right there. But anyway, have a good week, good day, good night, whatever time you're listening to this.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
Bye.